Yeah, welcome back to the Gleam fishing channel. Another cool morning here in Nelson. Blue sky day though, so it should be a cracker. Hey, we're very fortunate to have our next guest here. Some of you may know him if you're from around the Sounds or French Pass or any of those areas. I'm pretty sure you'll know our next guest, Davey Jones. So, Davey, welcome.
Thank you.
So Davey's been. I spoke with my father, Philip, about what do you remember about Davey. So he's, you've had a life pretty well lived. You're a fisherman down around the Sounds forever. You've been involved in boat building. You were trawling, and I think you were hand picking mussels. You were doing all sorts of those early things in the Sounds, but most importantly, you've had a long history at Wakatahuri. So, Davey Jones from Wakatahuri. So, welcome. Look, we've actually recently in the weekend been to your book launch. So, and I've got a copy of it here. Davey Jones of Wakatahuri and the Sounds Wrecking Company. So, look, I've had a bit of a look through, and what a fantastic account of history around the Sounds and Wakatahuri and places like that. I think I spoke at the book launch about the importance of actually capturing this early history. It's there's the photos of the old boats and the old people and the families and the old places are absolutely second to none, and they are a credit to you. So, look, what inspired you? Where did you get the idea to write a book?
Well, I've always been interested in history, right from, 6 years old, I suppose. World events. But the stories that were told to me by Bernard and Tom Wells of the early days, these stories were told to me 70 years ago, more than 70 now, of the intercolonial schooners that Wakatahuri has something to do with assisting or repairing and so on. And of course then there was the fish freezer at Wakatahuri that started about 1954. I started fishing there in 1956. Well, that hasn't been documented at all, and no one would even remember the names of the fishermen there now or anything about it. So I thought I'd set things down about that, but really it was Martin Berthold really that started the ball rolling with the Sounds Wrecking Company, and that was published in 2009, and we were going to do a second edition, and anyway we got a lot of information up, and the years were all by and not much happened, and then Martin, I sort of lost contact with him, and one day he rang up and said, would you like to buy the rights to this magazine? And yes, okay, and that kicked it off. But of course then I had to find somebody to, perhaps somebody had to do the book. Finally, Lynette Wells, that's Goulding, Lionel Wells' daughter, volunteered to do the typing and some research, and that was terrific. So I really got revved up then, and then by sheer chance, Carol Dorber came on the scene. Well, I'd known Carol Dorber from about 20 years earlier. She'd talked to me about mussel farming. Well, Carol was very experienced and knows everything there is to know about, getting things down on paper. She's very good to work with. So we went from there, and so we've covered quite a bit of ground. Certainly, if I had to do a second edition, there's a little bit more I would add, but by and large, we've captured a bit of it, I think.
Yeah, I think you've captured a lot of it, to be fair. So 200 pages of it. So look, you've had a lifetime with vessels, and I noticed at the beginning of the book that you were born inland. You were born in Tadmore, but obviously the calling of the sea. And, Davey Jones is obviously a name that's synonymous with maritime things, so you've probably lived up to that name in many ways. So, but I just looked in the first few pages. Just tell me a little bit about your upbringing when you were young and what sort of happened to get you engaged in boats and interested in boats. And there's a particular bit in the book. You had a bit of a nickname, Gunpowder Jones. So what can you tell us about your early sort of upbringing and this Gunpowder Jones thing? What's that all about?
Well, there was no seafaring Joneses that I'm aware of, but I was born in Richmond and brought up in a place called Matariki, which is 52 miles from here. So I never had a lot to do with the sea in early years, but I did had an aunt who was a Pirano. Her father was Dave Pirano.
Another well-known sort of seafaring family. Yep.
And we used to go over to Picton, Coromiko, that's where my mother came from quite a bit, and I was able to go out with Dave Pirano a few times on his boat. She was about 39-foot counter stern vessel. No one seems to know much history of it, except it was lengthened by Ernie Lane, and I've never ever found out what engine it had, but could have been a Kelvin, but later it was a 3-cylinder Lister. But anyway, that's besides the point. Yes, well, I took over. Well, of course, we lived in Picton, Waikawa, and then Picton. So, and of course, very early days, sort of around 1945, 46. One boat I do remember specifically there was the Ocean Star. Well, of course, I didn't know anything about guards or anything like that at that time. I thought, what a beautiful looking boat, would go anywhere, survive any weather. But I don't know why you would even think that, because, I mean, you look at a boat and somehow or another, for some reason or other, you think it's a great shape, or what. I think it's some instinctive thing in your brain where you can appreciate something beautiful. I don't know what it is. I don't have to ask a psychiatrist or something, but yes. So I started off boat building with Roger Carey, but I was there for about 3 years, but I left and took up fishing. And I had a boat called the Joyce, a little counter-stern boat owned by. It was built by Joe Jukes in Ballina Bay. It had a 2L2 Gardner in it. It was some ancient
2-cylinder Gardner. That's pretty rare. Yeah,
ancient gearbox on it that used to put itself into gear every now and again, which is when you're fishing, it was embarrassing. But yeah, I did all right. But of course, I didn't do a lot about fishing. I'd been out with Athol Pirano. That was the son of Dave Pirano. He inherited the boat. I did learn a lot there. With crayfishing and all that sort of thing, and making superjack pots, and used to go into the reserves and Queen Charlotte and what's all dock there now, and cut all these great heaps of superjack and bring them out to the boat and making all these pots and so on. That was very enjoyable, but I suppose there and then, well, even before then, I decided I'd like to be a commercial fisherman. It seemed to be a good life, and self-employed and so on, and so it went from there. And well, of course, the freezers, as I said, cranked up at Wakatahuri about 1953 or 54. I went round there in 1956. The freezer was owned by John Alec, who was a fish merchant in Picton. Yes, it was, made blue cod, long lining, shark, mostly snapper, bit of groper, but the things were so different those days. Like, you buy the boat, there was no surveys, there was no skipper tickets. The boat itself, the only navigational instrument with a magnetic compass, which was probably invented a couple of thousand years before by the Chinese. Wasn't even a radio, nothing, absolutely nothing, no sounders, nothing. But, and of course there wasn't any railing around the boat, you just have just below bulwarks, but no one fell overboard. And yeah, things were just so different. And, you're obliged to send in your monthly fish return. Well, if you didn't, you got a polite postcard from the fisheries inspector, which was I can't think of the name now. Bill Little was one of them. Anyway, they didn't get too excited until you missed about 3 months. So, but nowadays I think you just get hung, drawn, and quarters if
you miss a kilo, then you're in trouble.
You're in real serious trouble.
Yeah. And
the fisheries inspectors were. Jack Warner was his name. I mean, they were respected. They did a job and did it well. And I know Jack Warner even had some hands and some of the regulations here about with trawling and so on. And I think some of his ideas were quite sound. Nothing was overfished. We did a lot of. In the Marlborough Sounds, there was a trawling. You could trawl for 5 months of the year with a 30-foot headline net and short sweeps. Well, that came into bearing during the war, so and carried on. I don't know whether it's still vogue or not, but it was only about one other boat. There was Guy Hawkins was operational, but I also went to sea with Bernard Wells there time to time when he was short of crew, and that was always a learning experience. And good guy, Bernard, but
great guy. Yeah.
Yes, he had a boat called the Marina, 40-foot 4LW Gardner. So no, you were always good value, but of course the small freezer. And we caught you cast a lot of gurnet, so all the fish had to be filleted. Well, of course, for breakfast we had gurnet fillets, for lunch we had gurnet fillets, and evening meal we had gurnet fillets, But it was so convenient, just grab a handful and chuck them into the pan. Yeah. So, yes, that was good. And, the other fisherman, Bill Burke, is another one that built a boat on Maud Island. Yes, of course that's all owned by Doc now, but him and Brian Harvey. Yes, it had it looks like a cedar tree straight out of the forest. It was the aft mast. It was had sort of kinks in it, and the top of it had this enormous set of stag antlers. So, yes, I was at Macaulay's, were fishing into the freezer, and Arthur Hocard and John Crow, Wells did a bit. There was a guy, Alan Schroeder, around the freezer. He'd come from Puramahoy originally. So, yes, well, about sums it up in 90 years in 5 minutes. So
I guess having the freezer at Wakatahuri, because that was that I guess started some of the fishing down there, didn't it? Gave you the ability to keep your product cold, and that sort of opened up, I assume that opened up markets and opportunity, because you could actually refrigerate, couldn't you?
Yes, that's true. Of course, freezers in any small fishing boat was very rare those days. In fact, it was unheard of. It took a long time to happen. I know in Picton, all the fish used to come in on the stacked on the deck.
Yeah.
Out something a day or 2 days, and
in the sun, sitting out there.
And they were thrown onto the wharf one at a time. No fish cases, no nothing.
Yeah.
And the Nelson Fisheries truck came down and just threw them on the back of the truck and processed. And of course, one of the things I do remember, they had this toilet on the end of the shed at Roger Carey's. Well, it went down a steel railway iron, and the intake pipe for the salt water for washing the fish down at Nelson Fisheries came out of that same pipe.
Oh, oh.
True.
So food safety's come a little way, Dave,
Yes, it
hasn't
has come a little way since then.
Yeah, I don't think we'd get away with that. The old audit wouldn't go so well from MPI if your water supply was next to your toilet outlet, I can imagine. And just picking up, I think what you touched on, we've lost the simplicity, haven't we? I spent a lot of time, I guess, when I was younger in the Sounds and around D'Urville Island on this boat, the Gleam, quite a bit, holidays and fishing in the weekends with Dad. But things were simpler, eh? Like, things were simpler.
There wasn't the bureaucracy. That's plain and simple. I mean, that's destroyed the inshore fishing fleet here. I mean, the fishermen here are just fading away and the boats are going rotten. And I mean, you can hardly give away a wooden fishing boat these days, or any sort of fishing boat that comes to that. But it's just a shame. It's taken over by the offshore fish now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a loss of the community feel too, isn't it? Because I remember, when I was really young, it was around the frog pond around there. That's now all reclaimed land. You can't even see where the frog pond was, but. Even in the sort of 90s, we'd have like 70, 80 boats here. Silly bitters, there's still lots of fish. We've got plenty of fish, but no fishermen, because it's got difficult to catch them, and not from an operational point of view. Like, we could go out there and get a bag of snapper or whatever we wanted tomorrow if we needed to, just like we could probably in the 70s and 80s. But it's just not economically viable because the costs have gone through the roof. Obviously expectations have changed, and there's a lot more paperwork, and there's cameras and all sorts of things. So can you imagine operating back in those days with cameras on board, Dave, and digital monitoring and all of that stuff? Would be a bit of a challenge, wouldn't it? Certainly different.
Yes, well, I fished at Stewart Island there for a while, and there was fishermen down there that couldn't read or write. But they were gun fishermen. One was Doug Hanning. I mean, he was a top man. Yep. He wouldn't be able to fill in a fish return.
Yep. And we get a lot of that today. You'd be surprised. I mean, look, some industries attract people that don't like the paperwork and the documentation. And look, still today there's fishermen, that might have dyslexia or trouble reading and writing. But as you said, you put them on a boat and give them the gear, and they just absolutely incredible. But you throw a form or a bit of paper and a pen in front of them, and they freak out and they shut down. So
very true. Yeah.
So the industry's got a place for everybody, really, and it's just, I guess, changing times. The paperwork is catching them, as I say. So having a look through the book, I mean, I'm really, where did you get all the photos and that from? Because, and it's interesting, you remind me quite a bit of Chris, Chris Guard. Like, he can think of a boat 30, 40 years ago, and he could tell you what engine was in it, and bloody near what pitch is on the propeller, and who it was built for, and who owned it, and what the purpose was, and if it was renamed. And looking through your book, the detail, like first the historical photos, and that are a credit, from obviously around Wakatahuri, the Sounds and Picton, all the early boats is amazing. But where did you get all those specific information of the old vessels and places? Was it research? Did you have some? Did you steal them from a museum? Where did you get all the information from?
Well, initially when I was told some of these stories about the intercolonial schooners, I made notes on the back of an envelopes. And I still got the envelopes. Well, when this book cranked up, there was enough information there to do research in museums and so on.
So, must have been a lot of bloody envelopes.
No, God, it was just basic stuff. That's all it was.
Yep.
And particularly the Val Marie, the big schooner.
Yep.
Well, went to Hobart and visited the museum, and it was too late to see the original building it was built in, but there's a lot of interesting stuff come up there. And the Louis Thoreau that Bernard Wells and his sister boarded, and back in the about 1915, did repair work on a horizontal engine that anchored had been it anchored and couldn't raise the anchor, and so they got Claude Wells. Somehow got hold of. Well, they rowed ashore at Titirangi, and then Titirangi they did have phones those days, and rang Wakatahuri, and Claude Wells came out and took the cylinder head and valves away, and of course there was no lathe at Wakatahuri then, but there was a guy up the Sounds. His name escapes me. They turned up a lathe and turned up a valve and got the engine going, and Captain Gould was the master, and it corresponded quite a few years with Claude Wells. So that was one story. So, but there's a lot of photographs of Worcester taken. A lot of photographs got stolen, I think, by a certain person. But but I was a little bit interested in photography, but I wish I was a little bit more than that. But no one thought about taking pictures because they think that everything's pretty simple and dead boring. Well, nothing's going to change, but changes are happening. Well, daily, weekly, yearly, all the time, and it never goes back to where it was. Yeah. So it's good to record it. But of course, I only had very basic cameras like Brownie box cameras. As well, you can see that quality. Some of the pictures are not like great, but yes, as I say, I've always been sort of inflicted with history, I suppose you could call it, but. Yes, it's because I'm about the sole survivor of the fishing. Fishing was done at Wakatahuri for John Alec Limited, and the only ones left of the Sounds Wrecking Company. I was a business partner in that towards the latter part of it. Yep. So so then I think when I had the other vessel, the Tihui, we did this trip via New Caledonia and went to Australia and back. So I think it was Dick Zorab, a guy used to visit us once, used to visit us at times in a catamaran. I think he was related to the Zorab, the judges and lawyers, which is a pretty famous name, but I think he was a good guy, but I think he was regarded a bit as the black sheep of the Zorab family, but but he spoke with us about this overseas voyaging, so got the boat set up and he did this voyage. It took months, and anyway, it's.
So that was on the Tihui, and I understand you've got the Kelvin there as well. So where have you been? So
well, the Kelvin one, when our foster son, formerly adopted Tommy, was drowned shortly after getting the boat going. Night and ice on the wharf at Tarrong and fell into the water. So I took over the boat. Well, I was getting a bit ancient to go turning then, but I spent about 3 seasons on it. But she was a bit small, but the working way offshore and landing mostly in sometimes in Nelson, Manukau and New Plymouth, but it was very good in New Plymouth because you're back in every night and you caught the fish looking off the breakwater at times.
Yeah,
that was a bit like
close and handy.
That was a bit like a fishing holiday, really.
Yeah,
very enjoyable. But the MAF had this tax on Doc had this tax on $375 a tonne on yellowfin tuna, and it was $50 a tonne on albacore. Well, we could handle the $50 all right, but the yellowfin, I never discovered why they did it. But I wrote them a number of letters about it, but generally, the usual broad answer and never tell you anything. So, but you never caught many yellowfin. But I used to, in spite of the tax, I used to keep them on board. But of course, it was a waste of space in the freezer, and a lot of fishermen just threw them overboard, the clever ones. I wasn't clever. So, and of course, MAF were doing the collecting of the money. Of course, they got a bit irate about me not paying them, so I got sort of excommunicated after a while, or cashiered, or whatever. And I didn't have a licence, so I thought, I might try some tunaring and up on Tonga, you see. So my crew was Rodney Hanson, so we got all the boat geared up, and I think gotten there, we cleared customs here, I think, and shot off to Tonga. But there was a lot of things up there that, well, it was plain difficult. I mean, so I had to marry a local really to be successful. Well, okay, I wasn't married, but I always had a girlfriend, so that could have been a bit of conflict there, you see. So we gave that idea away and sort of kept heading towards Australia, stopping at the various islands and finally back to Nelson. So that about sums that up, I think. So
it's quite a journey in a little. How long's the Calvin? What is she?
42 foot 4 inches.
42 foot, yeah. So that's the length of the Gleam, but she's a bit narrower than the Gleam.
10 foot 3 outside of the planking and 5 foot draft, yeah. Very narrow, like a canoe. That's about all you could call it.
Yeah.
That was built in 1929 by Steve Carey and Port Chalmers.
Yeah.
Still going well, I've still got it.
There's some of those details, you see. You knew when it was built, where it was built, what engine was in it. And looking at you, I just like going through, so just talking a bit about the book, which I'm pretty sure will be very popular. I think you've sold quite a few already. And anyone that's sort of living in the Sounds, really, if they want to know the history and places like Waka or Wakatahuri, you know, you'd steam past it and see some of the stuff on the beach and sort of wonder what happened there. But this is obviously a great... it's a great piece of history. Anyone living in the Sounds really should get a copy of it and carry it forward. But I particularly like, there's some sections in there that I sort of read through, and I liked things like, for example, talking about the Gardner versus GMs. And anyone that's been involved in boats or the fishing, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I guess for those that don't understand, for many, many years, there was sort of two types of engines. I mean, listers, obviously, we can throw listers in there as well in the early years, but there is a Detroit diesel two-stroke GM, which a lot of fishermen used, and then there was, of course, the European Gardner, wasn't there, or the British Gardner, which were largely larger engines, but they were quieter and more fuel efficient, etc. But
slower
revving, and they lasted forever. I mean, I guess like the Guards, our boats mainly had GMs in them. The Dorothy May that's here in Nelson, she was our only boat with a Gardner, and she's got the 8L3B Gardner in it. That's probably, haven't got exactly right, but it's been in there 40 to 50 years, I would say, and it's the top end has been rebuilt twice, but the main bearings and the crank is original. So, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of hours she's done, but it's really a testimony to the old Gardner, isn't it? But
it is.
Sort of. So you've traditionally, you're a gardener or a lister man. I see you lister cap. So the Wellses always seem to, and the Wakatahuri people seem to like their listers. So what would your pick be in your time growing up? What's the tell us a little bit about the engines that you have had and the pros and cons, I guess, of the different engines you've had in boats.
Well, second hand, the listers you could buy for sweet FA, but the Gardners are a much more expensive engine. But yes, well, of course, we had a lister driving a milking machine plant at Matariki, and he could hand start it even at about 5 years old.
Yeah. That's probably one of your jobs, I'd imagine. Yeah.
It was pretty easy. But I don't know, the L2 Gardners, because they were the ancestors of the LWs, they had door plates and single heads, and they moved on to the LWs, but they're more of a sort of industrial engine, I thought, but the L3s are certainly a terrific engine. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So of course we had, I think at the Picton fishing fleet, they were mostly listers, and quite a few listers in the fleet that was fishing into Wakatahuri, and of course the guards, Alan and Charlie Garden, way back had listers as well. So,
Yeah.
so and Gilbert Guard, it was one in Picton, he had a twin garden on these
Yep.
boats. So yes, they were well known engines, but
Yeah.
a different sort of a principle to the garden, a sort of
Yeah.
heavier, a lot heavier.
Yeah.
Um,
But reliable, I guess.
but reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in the later guards we ended up with GMs, I guess, and as we know, we get flat. That's why half us are deaf, and lots of noise, a bit more instant power and things. But I noticed like one of the funny stories there, you had the old the Warratia and the Majestic. So one had a GM and one had a Gardner, and I see they had a tug of war. So that was that's sort of what people did, eh? The conversation, I guess, the competition between the Gardner engine and the Detroit engine sort of heated up to the stage that that people would have a tug of war competition. I'm seeing one of them you talked about in the old, they were flat out having the old towing competition, and the old Gardner probably had a bit more torque, started to get ahead on the GM, and then she went clunk. And
that was that race. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
That's right. Yeah.
8L3, yeah.
Yeah.
C, solid, yeah.
So they probably didn't warm her up or something, so she got a bit hot by the sounds of it, eh? And I see, just looking in the book, like page 91-ish, for example, there's a great old photo of the old Da Vinci with the old wheelhouse, and she's up on the beach there. I think it says she had something around the propeller or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They were, and there's some great pictures. I noticed the one of all the boats rafting up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there would be, 10 or a dozen boats all rafted up at the wharf at Wakatahuri. And it was actually interesting because I spoke to, Mike that had the Gypsy back, Mike Harris, and he was actually at your book launch and spoke to him about it, and he can remember that photo. And so he was there in the old Gypsy, and he was saying he was looking at the Gypsy and going, God, look how small she is, because she was quite a little boat. And you could see, and we sort of named all the boats all the way out. And the Da Vinci was there. I actually think I was on the Da Vinci at that stage as a very, very young fella, and the Gleam was there, and we see there was some of the Waka boats, and there was the Matai and the Tequila, Tanaka. And it's just, that's what I enjoyed about the book, Davey, is it is a look at yesteryear, and like I said, simple times, brings back great memories. And you must have had a friggin' blast down in Wakatahuri when Wakatahuri was sort of running in its heyday, and you had you obviously had the Sounds Wrecking Company up and running. What was a day in the life like at Wakatahuri in its busiest times? What was it like?
Well, there was a guest house there run by the old people, and there was a Wakatahuri cash store, and there was a fuel depot. There was a charter boat with Ronnie Wells, there was a slipway, and there was a shipbreaking. There's a mail boat twice a week. But of course, while the freezer was running, there was 3 or 4 boats or more coming every day.
Yep.
So it was very social.
Mm.
And but now it's all gone now. When I'm there's about 3 people, and otherwise there's Natalie and Gavin, so it's all gone fairly quiet. But yeah, the shipbreaking was fascinating. But I didn't take any photographs for some reason. But they were ones that Martin Berthold had from the photographs are credited to the original professional photographers there, but one's from a Wellington newspaper. So, But I used to rafted up boats. I discovered at the book launch it was actually Mike Harris that took that photograph. Somebody else gave it to
was
me.
Mike. Okay.
Yeah. So, but
Who was the
anyway,
one I was talking to about
I
it?
want to give him credit right now. And of course,
Right.
we got the photographer unknown. So it was Mike. Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it was actually funny at the book launch. She'll remain unnamed, but you'll know her very well. But she said the fishermen used to raft up there after they'd finished their scallop quota, and they'd be all there, and of course they'd be, once they'd finished, they'd have a couple drinks, and
Yeah, more than a couple.
Yeah, 2 or 3 drinks or more, and be having a good old time. And of course, a lot of those smaller, older boats didn't have a toilet. So, of course, what they would do, all the boys are down the back telling their tall yarns and stories about all the fish they caught and didn't catch. And then they'd walk up the bow to do the old number one. And, of course, she was saying, and, of course, they were all in the kitchens and the houses facing out to the wharf. And she said it was terrible. She said they had to look away. She said, so that was she recalled the boats rafting by the guys up the bow. So it's like, I said, oh, sorry, I might have done that once or twice myself. So, an awkward silence moment, and thought, you never know who's watching, eh? So the back of the book, so it's sort of written, you've got your life and the boats and the history, and then you got the Sounds Wrecking Company pictures and that at the back. I'm pretty naive, I guess, but I didn't even realise that there was like the Sounds, wrecking company there. I do remember as a young fella going and go, why is all these broken boats and ships everywhere? I think as Amanda said, they called it the 4-acre toolbox because you could find something to fix something at any time. So it must have been, so largely the ships were just broken down and parts were sold, or was there repairs, or what was the main sort of function of the Sound Shipping Company or Wrecking Company?
Oh, it was non-ferrous metal, really, but a lot of furnishings come off the Martangi because she was a gun passenger ship in its day, and all the mahogany fittings and stuff below was just amazing, yeah.
Oh, all the timber and all the good stuff.
And so on. Oh. So a lot of it was recycled somewhere.
Yeah.
So, the vessel, they were virtually intact. They were totally intact when they arrived at the Wakatahuri.
Yeah. So steam them up on the beach, Dave, or just anchor them off?
Oh, yeah, they're all on the beach at some stage, but
yeah.
But one was cut up. That was the Kaitoa, and loaded onto the other two as scrap, and then it was towed to Hong Kong by a tug called the Bustler.
Okay.
It's 3,200 horsepower in it, so 1,600 horse polars.
See, there's that level of detail that anyone that reads your book will enjoy, because they'll get to not only see a photo, they'll know the engine and the horsepower. So you've got a pretty bloody good memory. So a lot of it was, crikey, so it was ultimately recycling, wasn't it, really, at the end of the day? And it's one of the, I saw somewhere, it might have been in that, in one of the readings there, that it was the oldest wrecking company in New Zealand, which it must have been.
No, boat repair.
Boat repair, sorry.
Coupe.
Yep.
Came there in about, well, it depends on what history book you read, but one date was put at about 925 AD.
Yeah.
He came down the coast from Pokeanga. This is Coupe. But
yeah.
I've talked to the Maori oral historians at Pokeanga, but
yeah.
But anyway, he did a repair on his canoe, so that's where the name comes from. Wakatahuri means capsized canoe, because I think they came to New Zealand with double hull canoes, and then they went to the single ones.
Yeah.
As far as I know, but I guess they were easier to haul up a beach or go on a river estuary or whatever. I don't know. I'm not up with that play at all. But anyway, Coupe apparently visited there at the Sounds. He hauled the boat on Tidi Island, and then went to Puru and put some stopper in it, and Te Puru means bung apparently. So
okay, so where it all began.
Of course, there was a bit of a lapse between Coupe and McManaway's arriving, and it was a 5 acres subdivided off a big farm there for this fishing company. It was cranked up about 1903.
Yep.
And then one of the McManaways bought it, and then the Wells. So the McManaways had a lot of early history.
Yep.
Wakatahuri.
Yep.
Thomas Dalton McManaway, and so on.
Yeah, she's a pretty historic place, really, isn't it? So it's another one of, I think people may not realise like the amount of, you've got the Pranos and Wellses, McManaways. I mean, our family, the Guards as well. But the centre of the South Island was largely a lot of the beginnings, wasn't it? So there's so much rich history around the Sounds and Tasman Bay and that. I mean, people I don't think appreciate how much history we had, how many firsts, and I guess how many businesses and that there were. And this is a really good recollection of that part of the region, really, isn't it?
Yes, for instance, Bernard Wells can remember the 15 sailing vessels anchored on Guard's Bank, waiting for the weather, probably subtly to get to Wellington. Well, there was somebody on Forsyth Island. I've just forgotten his name at the moment, but they used to supply some of the ships with vegetables, and also there was a still there. They used to supply alcohol as well.
Sailors being sailors, yeah.
And the customs tried to find it, but they came down a few times and it didn't have any luck. So I reckon, and I think one of the customs officials were reported as saying that, if people like to live in such a remote area, they deserve probably a bit of alcohol from time to time. So I just, wow. His name only come to light recently. The Redwoods, they had, Forsyth knew about him, so we were able to did a bit of research, but there's not much publicity if you're running an illegal still with no promotions or.
No, you don't. You don't do a social media post.
No,
not that it existed back then. But
absolutely not. No.
That would have been a sight to behold, wouldn't it? 15 of those old ships anchored
yes,
up on.
Yeah. Well, they left a lot of
Guards
anchors behind there too. The trawlers fouled and picked up. But
yeah.
Yes. Oh, it's a busy place in the early days. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, and now it's a busy place, I guess, for recreation, isn't it? Really, a lot of people are there, have their batches and bit of boating and bits and pieces. So it's definitely changing times for sure.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
So you've had, and congratulations on your birthday in the weekend. So your 90th birthday, which is we won't dwell on that, but you're doing bloody well for that. What's the secret? And I know I'm sure you've had 100 people ask this, and we're. I'd never really asked Alan, Uncle Alan Guard. He made it to 100. Jack, my grandfather, he got 97. And there's what do you reckon? What's the secret to a long, healthy life?
Playing about in boats.
Playing about in boats. Yep.
Eat plenty of fish.
Yep.
Don't eat Kentucky Fried Fowl.
Kentucky Fried Fowl. I like that. Yep. So good seafood, mucking around in boats. Yeah. Anything else?
Oh, don't know really. I think it's just sheer accident I got to this age.
Yeah. I would say that there's, from a reality point of view, you're probably right. I mean, enjoy what you're doing. Get out there. I mean, being outdoors and active is always good.
Oh yes, being active. That's right.
Yeah. And eating fish. I mean, there was, funnily enough, we're at the seafood conference recently, and there was a couple sort of doctors and researchers from Australia did a talk about latest research, like the health benefits of fish across the spectrum of ailments is incredible. Not short of, like, their findings is bizarre, to be honest. Like, I was quite spellbound. They're talking actually to breaking it down to, things like, even mental health and heart health and respiratory health. So they've broken the body down into all our different systems. And, if you eat seafood, they're saying on average twice a week, which, that some people can, some can't. But the health benefits for some of those things was like, 50, 60% reduction and all those sorts of things. So without a doubt, there's something to it, eh? Like eating lots of seafood.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's still plenty of fish in the Sounds, the blue cod. There's still plenty there, yeah. I think with a closed season and charter boats not filleting on board. I mean, they used to have, some had big deep freezers on full of fillets, and I'd go back to Christchurch or Wellington or whatever, but you don't see those boats anymore. But there's fizz boats, but certainly, but yeah, they're kind of good, yeah. Mm.
Which is what we need, right? So, so with the book, Davey, how do we get one? Where do we get one? Because there's going to be people that are interested in having a copy, and what's it cost?
Well, just up the road here, there's Quality Equipment.
So Quality Equipment, Vickerman Street, Nelson.
Yes, and it's $60. Yeah.
Yep, $60.
Yeah. Oh, they're also getting online through. Apparently, I've got some sort of a site on, which I didn't put on.
Well, I know your email is Davey Jones at wakatahuri.gmail.com, isn't it? So, or have I got that wrong?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, well, there's one.
I think that's probably, yes, I think that's something, yes. My paperwork skills, or that sort of skills, digital skills are pretty minimal, so.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put it up. I'm pretty sure it's Davey Jones of Wakatahuri.
Yeah, well, that's the name of the book.
At gmail.com to buy the book. So, and we'll put that on the screen so that everyone can sort of get access to it. So, look, I guess we'll start winding it up. Anything else, like anything that we haven't talked about, Davey, that you think, in relation to the book or the industry or anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't really covered?
Yes, there is actually. I come to think of it.
Yep.
One of the things is that Nelson has no nautical museum, and we've still got items here that could be put into that museum. And the prime or the main item, main artefact, if you could call it that, would have to be the Dorothy May, parked up there as is, trawl boards, wire, nets, everything on board. That instead of, I mean, when Michael retires from fishing, and I can't see anybody else taking it on and so on, and that would be a terrific exhibit. It would be a prime exhibit and a sort of a nautical museum. But I guess that'll never happen. But it's just because, I mean, the Guards built it, and it was all associated around here forever, and classic sort of a boat, and good looking, and
Pockety Bay built,
and Gardner engine, and
I knew you'd say the Gardner engine. 8L3B.
It would just be terrific. I mean, park it up just as it is. They don't have to do any restoration or anything. Just dry out in the shed, and and it wouldn't matter if there's still a few fish scales left on the deck.
Authentic that way, isn't it? Yeah.
It's authentic. So, but well, I doubt that they won't happen. We're not a nation that preserves vessel boats here. Not really.
Yeah, they seem to do it. I know up in Auckland, and Baden you talked about earlier is involved in restoring some old boats.
Oh, the Earring, yes, that's
up
right.
That end, but not down this neck of the woods. And you're right, because at one stage there was talk of a maritime or a fishing museum. We do need something. So if any of our viewers have got any interest or ideas, let us know. Because, for example, I've got at home, I've got all of Jack Guard's, or a majority of his plans. I've got half moulds. I've got all of Chris Guard's photos. I've got letters and early charts of the Sounds. I've got history. I've got every survey certificate for this vessel from 1946 through to today. And I know that there's a series of photo albums, so someone that's passed recently, and there's some photo albums going around. I mean, Grant Orr showed them to me. He was on here, did a podcast previously, and someone has made a lifetime out of taking photos of boats, and fishing boats largely, and some of the old freighters, and put them all in photo albums. So there is so many amazing things out there in history, and I'm with you. It's part of the reason we're doing this podcast is to preserve some little bits, but we do need like a static display or a museum or something for those that are interested, because once it's gone, isn't it? And the thing that I have found is when you know, when we go, the family don't even know. They'll look at the box of photographs and all the stuff that you and I have treasured over our lives, and we've collected, and it means something. But if we haven't told that story, it's just a dusty, dirty, old, faded photo, and they'll end up end up in the dump. So
That's true.
which is a real shame. So it's a really, really good valid point, I think. So anything else? We'll probably wind up now, Davey. Anything else you want to raise, or you're pretty good?
No, nothing. But I think the Dorothy May project, if it happens, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, well, we need to find someone with deep pockets, won't
I've
we?
seen. I've been to some of the Mystic Seaport in America. There, I mean, there's fishing boats preserved there, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing what they've done. They're just fantastic. The Welsh ship, the Charles W. Morgan, there's even draggers, Eastern draggers. I think about 1950 have been rebuilt and restored. Even it's got a gem in it.
Yeah, sort of restored. Yeah.
Yeah, and blue nosed the fishing schooners.
Yeah.
Oh, it cost us a lot of money there, but I mean, it's like housing one boat,
Yeah.
55 feet, wouldn't be that insurmountable.
No, it certainly wouldn't. And I mean, it's the same. Not so long ago, I was over in Hobart, and
Oh yes,
like,
yes,
there's
yes.
a lot
Yeah,
of old.
that's good. Yes.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Like all the old restored ships and that down the waterfront there.
Oh
is
yes,
something-
yes. That's good
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
in front
yeah,
of the
yeah.
restaurants or something special for sure. So, yeah. Well, look, we'll probably pull it to a close now. I just want to thank you very much, Davey, and all those involved in helping you with the book. So, Davey Jones of Wakatahuri and the Sounds Wrecking Company. For those of you that want a copy of it, remember Quality Equipment Nelson. And if you go to Davey Jones of Wakatahuri at gmail.com, you should be able to get hold of a copy of this anyway. So, look, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learnt something. And please subscribe, because that's important to us. It's how we grow the channel and continue to get interesting people like Davey Jones on board. So we'll see you soon.